My name is Carol Ann Curry. I am the Outreach and Data Coordinator for Region 5 of the Network of the National Library of Medicine, and I'll be your instructor today. I also have with me Rebecca Brown from the National Training Office, and she's going to be helping with chat and putting some links also into chat. And here is our agenda for the next 90 minutes or so. So we're going to begin with an overview of clinical research studies. We'll talk about how ClinicalTrials.gov is used and by whom. We'll address the importance of registering trials and reporting results. We'll spend about half the class within the slides kind of describing these terms to you. And then the second half of the class, we will explore ClinicalTrials.gov through a live demonstration of the modernized website. So for this portion, just a heads up, you can choose to just sit back and watch the demo, or you're welcome to follow along on your respective devices for that live demo portion. And then at the end, I'll share with you some search tips, and we'll have a class exercise to work on together, and then we will wrap things up by answering any questions that you might have. So all of that being said, I am going to stop my video, turn off my camera, and jump right into our content. So first, I'd like to hear from you. So in the chat, let us know what your experience is using ClinicalTrials.gov. Are you an expert user? Are you familiar perhaps with ClinicalTrials.gov, but maybe you want more tips? Maybe you don't use it much and you need a refresher, or ClinicalTrials.gov could be completely new to you. So yeah, we've got some familiar, limited, rarely. Okay, great. So today's webinar is designed as an introduction to ClinicalTrials.gov. So for those of you who said that you're experts or very familiar, we hope that you will still be able to use today's content to think about how you'll instruct others on how to use ClinicalTrials.gov. So what is ClinicalTrials.gov? So let's set the scene by taking a high-level look at ClinicalTrials.gov. It is a website and an online database of clinical research studies and information about their results. It's the world's largest registry of publicly and privately supported clinical studies and results, and is maintained by the National Library of Medicine and the National Institutes of Health. ClinicalTrials.gov was first made available to the public February 2000. So this is our 24th year with ClinicalTrials.gov. You can think of ClinicalTrials.gov as a library of clinical research studies, providing patients, healthcare professionals, researchers, and the general public with open access to information about clinical studies. So what is a clinical study? You will find this definition shown on the slide on the glossary of the ClinicalTrials.gov website. A clinical study is a research study involving human volunteers, also called participants, that is intended to add to the medical knowledge. The results give researchers the ability to assess efficacy of an intervention with a study population, or to research the risk factors of certain conditions. Regardless of the results of a study, they create worthwhile data that the public can access. There are two main types of clinical studies. There are clinical trials and observational studies. The main difference is that clinical trial participants are assigned to get an intervention, but observational study participants are not assigned to get an intervention. In observational studies, researchers simply collect information from participants or look at data that was already collected. If there is an intervention in an observational study, participants were already using it as part of their regular healthcare or daily life. So we're going to examine 6 key points about clinical trials now, and I'm going to go into a bit of detail with each of these points, just to provide you with a lot of context for when we go into our live searching portion. So point one is informed consent is an ongoing process. Some of you may be familiar with obtaining informed consent from participants before they enroll in a study. The document that's used for this contains important information such as a description of what will happen during the study, how much participants' time the study would take, any payments participants get from taking part in the study, or conversely, any costs that they may need to pay, and perhaps most importantly, the known benefits and risks of taking part in the study. And it's really important here to note that the concept of informed consent is not limited just to the enrollment period. Informed consent involves communication, transparency, and respect for participants' autonomy throughout the duration of the clinical trial. So even if someone signs an informed consent document, they have the right to withdraw that consent and leave the study at any time for any reason without facing any repercussions. Point two, clinical research can happen in many ways. Research can take place at hospitals, clinics, research centers, universities, over the phone, online. Research may take days, weeks, or years. In some clinical trials, all the participants get the intervention being studied. In other trials, research staff may assign participants to different groups. This happens in studies comparing an intervention to something else. So researchers may compare two drugs to see which works better or has fewer unwanted side effects. They may compare a drug to a placebo, or they may compare getting treatment to getting no treatment. Participants may be assigned into these groups at random, and neither the participants nor the research staff will know what group they've been assigned to. And this process is called masking or blinding, and it helps ensure that results are looked at fairly. Our third point is that participants continue to get health care. In some studies, participants may have to change or limit their usual health care. For example, they may have to stop certain medications that they take. Research staff will usually work with participants' doctors to make sure that being in the study will not cause any health problems. Our fourth point is that research staff ask participants to report health problems to them right away. Researchers will work with participants and the participants' regular doctors to address any problems that come up. A group of experts may also oversee what is happening in the study. If they have a safety concern, they will contact the researchers right away. So if there is a serious health problem happening to participants in the study, the researchers may stop the study altogether. Point five is that researchers collect data from participants during the study to help answer the research question. Researchers may use things such as surveys, questionnaires. They might get images, for example, x-rays or MRIs. They may take measurements such as height, weight, or blood pressure. And they could take samples of participants' blood or tissue to look at in a lab. Researchers may collect data from participants many times or only a few times. And some informed consent documents will include a statement on what researchers plan to do with participant data and how that data will be maintained and stored. And our final point here is that researchers analyze the data that they collect during clinical trials. Study records may include full statistical analysis that describe in detail the methods that will be used for data analysis. Having a clear, comprehensive, and transparent plan supports the reproducibility of research. And let's see. We have a question. Let's see. Rebecca, is Vishnu, can we unmute Vishnu or
I just asked him to
okay, in the
put it
chat?
into chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Cool. All right. That's great. All right. I'm going to move on. We'll kind of queue up some questions from chat and we'll have a chance to address those. We have a couple of stopping points built into this session, so we'll get to those questions. Okay. So here we are. Now we're going to discuss just the public benefits from access to clinical trials information. So there are a lot of benefits to the public from having access to clinical trials information. It helps researchers meet ethical obligations to human subjects. It informs future research and research funding decisions. It mitigates information bias. For example, like the non-publication of results data. It evaluates research integrity. For example, an adherence to a protocol. It prevents trial duplication of unsafe or ineffective interventions. It provides access to data that support evidence-based medicine, and it enhances patient access to clinical trials. So taken all together, these benefits contribute to an increased public trust in clinical research. And as former NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins said, quote, "Access to more information about clinical trials is good for patients, the public, and science." So let's see. What questions do we have, Rebecca, at this point that I can try and answer?
There is nothing in chat.
Cool. All right. That's good. That must mean that I'm just doing everything perfectly, right? Okay. Slide number 14. We are going to discuss who does ClinicalTrials.gov serve. ClinicalTrials.gov serves a broad audience external to NIH. The website primarily serves patients and their advocates. This can include healthcare professionals and their caregivers. They also serve data submitters of trial information and data researchers or clinical researchers that these can represent both academic and commercial organizations. The internal groups that ClinicalTrials.gov serves includes various policy and oversight teams, information specialists, reviewers, librarians, and developers. So what groups do you support or will you support? And feel free and drop in the chat, what groups do you support? Do you support patients and their advocates, for example, like healthcare professionals or data submitters or researchers? Maybe all three. Yeah, okay. Researchers, data submitters. Yeah, okay. Great. It's like a good mix here. All right. Thank you everyone for putting your answers in the chat. We're going to discuss a little bit more about the different groups. So for patients and advocates, the original intent of ClinicalTrials.gov was to help more patients gain access to trials that might help them. Patients and their advocates from the primary user group for the public-facing website. This site provides a centralized place to search for trials by condition, location, and other trial characteristics. And it provides a comprehensive list of ongoing trials of those who are interested in enrolling in one. But there's a lot more on the site, including supporting materials in plain language to aid in understanding of the study, resource links for learning more about topics and treatments related to studies, and educational information on the clinical trial process, terminology, and the importance of participating in research for advancing medical knowledge and improving patient care. And we will see some of those links when we are doing our live demo. So look forward to that. For the data submitters group, they represent study sponsors and investigators who submit trial information to ClinicalTrials.gov. Trial information is updated throughout the life of a study, and data submitters must update records at least once a year, and certain types of changes, for example, adverse effects, those need to be documented more frequently. And they do this through PRS, and that is the Protocol Registration and Results System. So learning how to use PRS is kind of complicated. It's a little bit outside the scope of this class. However, there are online trainings available on the ClinicalTrials.gov website, and the ClinicalTrials.gov team hosts some of those webinars as well. So if you want to learn more about that, check the online training opportunities on the website. Okay, so our next group are sponsors and investigators. I just want to highlight something very important. Sponsors and investigators are responsible for the data that appears on ClinicalTrials.gov, not NIH or NLM. And I'm just sorry if you can hear, there are some our landscapers are here today. So if you hear some noise, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for that. Okay. ClinicalTrials.gov provides access to study data, but does not own that data. And it's really important to know here that NIH and NLM do not do any scientific, legal, or ethical review on studies listed on the ClinicalTrials.gov website. That is the responsibility of sponsors and investigators, as well as their institutional review boards. So the responsibility to ensure that the science is sound and the study is safe relies on those individuals. So researchers, we're going to go back to our third group of users now. Researchers use ClinicalTrials.gov to search for information on current and completed clinical trials that may not be published. They may review individual study protocols, locate data that reveals trends in clinical research, and they can download study record data for analysis. And in the exercise that we're going to do later, that will get you thinking about different ways that you can potentially support research teams at your institution. And what about librarians? Librarians can use ClinicalTrials.gov in a variety of ways to help support different groups such as patients, healthcare professionals, and researchers. So a librarian could be their organization's ClinicalTrials.gov search expert, which would mean that they're able to retrieve trials by condition, location, or trial phase. They can help gather information to answer a clinical question and identify unpublished research for systematic reviews. Librarians can also guide patients and caregivers in understanding trials related to their condition, about their condition, and about participating in clinical research opportunities. Librarians can conduct training sessions for researchers, students, and clinicians on how to effectively use ClinicalTrial.gov, as well as how to interpret the trial results. And they can also promote transparency and open science by educating researchers and their staff how to comply with study results and submission requirements under current law. And we really just want to emphasize the librarian's role. NLM believes that librarians are ideally placed to educate and assist researchers at their institutions. Librarians do really great work promoting the NIH public access policy, which has contributed directly to more than 8 million articles deposited in PubMed Central. PubMed Central, just for those of you that aren't sure what PubMed Central is, that is NLM's free full-text archive of biomedical and life sciences journal literature. And similarly, NLM believes that librarians can promote the results submission requirements and encourage voluntary submission so that more results information is freely available through the ClinicalTrials.gov database. So I'm going to go into some detail here about the registration and results reporting requirement over the next six slides or so. And let's see. Oh, and I just want to emphasize that a lot of these requirements that are that we're going to discuss are included on the class handout under the ClinicalTrials.gov policy heading. So ideally, the complete results of all clinical trials would be made available to the public in a timely way. We would expect this because a significant amount of public funds are invested in clinical research. And the individuals who volunteer for these studies are often consent and give up their right to choose an option about their health care and potentially put themselves at risk for these results. So that being said, in practice, between 25 and 50% of clinical trial results remain unpublished, which means their outcomes are inaccessible even, several years after the completion of the study. Of those trial outcomes that are published, those are often published and reported selectively depending on the nature of the results. There are numerous ways in which the evidence that appears in the journal literature can misrepresent or underreport the full range of the collected data. And some examples of this could be researchers or funders, they may not be happy with the study results. Another example, a journal editor may select studies that have more interesting results over studies that show maybe not a significant effect of an intervention. Details of a study may only be selectively reported. For example, changes to a trial protocol may happen mid-study and may not be fully reported in a publication, or information about serious adverse drug effects may be omitted. And there's also just the fact that authors may simply run out of space in a publication to fully report those results. So in the end, this selective publication makes it difficult to determine the true value of a treatment. And for this reason, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and NIH launched a series of requirements in the 2000s to work on better transparency in research and study reporting. In 2005, the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, or ICMJE, began requiring that sponsors and investigators make clinical trials available on public databases such as ClinicalTrials.gov. This publication policy required trial registration as a condition for the publication of research results generated by a clinical study. In 2007, the FDA Amendments Act, Section 801, or also known as FDAAA 801, expanded the types of studies that were required to be registered in ClinicalTrials.gov, as well as the data and summary results that needed to be submitted. This law applies to specific clinical trials of drugs, biological products, and medical devices. And then in 2017, the Department of Health and Human Services applied what is known as the final rule for clinical trials registration and results information submission. And this further clarified and explained what needs to be submitted under that FDAAA 801. So let's go into a little bit about the final rule. The final rule provides a checklist for evaluating which clinical trials are subject to the regulations and who is responsible for submitting that required information. It expands the scope of trials for which summary results information must be submitted to include trials involving FDA-regulated products that have not yet been approved, licensed, or cleared by the FDA. It also requires additional information and summary results from informational data elements to be included in ClinicalTrials.gov, including the complete protocol and the race and ethnicity of trial participants if collected. It requires additional types of adverse event information and provides a list of potential legal consequences for noncompliance. And those potential penalties are not small. They can they include civil monetary penalties of up to $10,000 per day and the withholding of NIH grant funds. So as you can see, these penalties bring serious consequences, not just to the individual investigators, but also their institutions. So it's important to be compliant. So given these regulations and penalties, why isn't the number of studies with results in ClinicalTrials.gov even higher? And there are two major challenges in submitting results data. The first is just a lack of awareness of the results submission requirements. That is what needs to be submitted and when. And second is a lack of a detailed knowledge. And really, the results need to be submitted by someone familiar with the study and the data. So someone involved in that research would be better at depositing that data than someone that's not familiar. So, and just a note here that if you or a researcher are submitting results for the first time and you contact the staff at clinicaltrials.gov for one-on-one assistance, you can do that, and the email is highlighted here on this slide. And they will be able to help you with questions regarding submitting your results. Okay. So the regulations that we just reviewed here have resulted in ClinicalTrials.gov becoming an important source for research information at a level of detail that has never before been available in a public resource. So we have a really great graph that depicts the growth of ClinicalTrials.gov from when it was first conceived back in 1997. So we can see here in 2000, this was the year that the website launched. It contained 2,119 study records, and you can see by 2005 that the study numbers doubled the year that the ICMJE publication policy was implemented. And the ClinicalTrials.gov results database, which launched in 2008, a year after the FDAAA 801 requirements went into effect. So you can just see this constant growth of results that are in ClinicalTrials.gov. So further to the right, you can see that the website modernization effort launched in 2019. At that time, there were over 325,000 study records, and by the end of December 2023, that number was over 475,000. So, and these results come from the United States and and 221 countries. So this just kind of shows you the type of growth that ClinicalTrials.gov has done and can be anticipated over the coming years. And so you might have heard me mention, I mentioned it just now, modernization of the clinicaltrials.gov website. That effort began in 2019, and this was done with the goal of improving user experience on an updated platform while continuing to support the existing legal, regulatory, and policy framework. The modernized website is built on the U.S. web design system principles, making it in alignment with other government websites. So it's now 501 accessible, and it's been optimized for mobile devices. In June of last year, the modernized website moved out of the beta form, and during this time, it entered a migration period. And up until June of this summer, June 24th of this summer, you were able to toggle between the classic version of the website. However, as of June 24th, the classic version has been retired, and you can only utilize the modernized version. So, and we encourage you to subscribe to the ClinicalTrials.gov newsletter hot off the PRS. That will provide you with updates about features and functionality, and this is included as a link on your handout. And you can also, well, I guess you can't click on that link, but you can when we send you the PowerPoint slides. So I'm going to pause right now and see if we have any questions before we move into the live demo portion.
Okay, so there was a question earlier, Carol Ann, from Danielle. So I hope your ears are perking up, Danielle. So her question was, would ClinicalTrials.gov list if a trial is undergoing peer review? So I have a question about that being, because I've read that an organization or a researcher who is leading a clinical trial can ask another organization to do a peer review. So Danielle, is that what you meant? Or are you talking about results being published or not published and hence peer reviewed that way? So I'm not sure, and we'll give her a moment.
Okay.
Oh, yes to the first. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So do you know the answer to that? Because I don't think that's included.
I am not sure of the answer to that. What we are in contact with the ClinicalTrials.gov team. So for any tricky questions such as this one, we'll put those together in a list and we'll send those. I do not want to give you the wrong information. So we'll check on that and get back to you, and we'll send the answers to these to just all the registrants, so everyone will get the answers to that.
That's a good question because we haven't been asked that one before.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
That's all there was.
That's all. Okay. All right. So, so we're going to go now to the live website, and again, just a reminder, you can just sit back and watch the demo, or you're welcome to follow along on your computer or a second monitor or even your phone. So we've got the URL here on the slide, and what we're going to do is we're going to start by getting familiar with the main features of the modernized website and show you how to perform a basic search, and then we'll learn about how to use filters, and towards the end I'll share with you some search tips, and finally we'll do a class exercise together using a research case scenario. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my slides and go right into the ClinicalTrials.gov website. Okay, I'm switching gears now. Okay, so here's the homepage of ClinicalTrials.gov. It's laid out very simply. You can see there's just in the center of the page, we've got our search area, and this is where we can jump right into finding studies by entering just, a few criteria in the search box. You can see here that, well, before I start searching, we're just kind of orient you to this page. Above the search box, you can see a brief disclaimer about the website, and this goes back, I mentioned this on some of the recent slides, just making it very clear that the U.S. government does not review or approve the safety and science of all studies listed on the website. And you can find more information about that here. You could read the full disclaimer, but this appears just constantly on the site, just reminding everyone that yes, that we're not vetting the quality of the research or the clinical trials done here. So across the top of the page, I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Across the top of the page, we've got a streamlined site menu, and I'm just going to go from left to right. We've got this Find Studies tab, and we've got some options below for Find Studies, and then also in Study Basics. And these are just tabs where you can quickly get your hands on things like search guides, helpful tips, a glossary, and patient resources. You can use the Submit Studies tab right here to help find resources about the PRS and the user guide. And then we have a Data and API tab. And this tab has information on how to organize, reference, and search, and how to retrieve data. They also have some information about the application programming interface, or what's known as API. And this is really important to data researchers. And just to note that this was previously housed, this feature was previously housed on a separate site, but now it's been integrated, and all the supporting information and materials are now just located in one convenient spot. Next, we've got the policy tab, and that's where you find information on the FDAAA 801 and the final rule, as well as data element definitions. And then lastly, there is the About tab that is where you can find news and updates and any kind of release notes. And those release notes, they're going to provide details on recent and future upgrades to the website. So I'm going to go clear those. Okay. And now I'm just going to scooch down a little bit. We're going to scroll towards the bottom. And I'll show you here, you can find a few different ways to provide feedback. And you can provide feedback under this help button. Give us feedback. And it's just whatever you'd like to provide feedback on. And then you can also, just on every page, as you see, as I scroll up and down, there's this yellow feedback toggle that opens up here. So this is another way that you can provide feedback. And we really do encourage feedback to be submitted, because it really does make a difference. This feedback is regularly analyzed by the ClinicalTrials.gov team, and it has helped make decisions about the modernized website. And then also under help, we've got this customer support feature. This is going to take you to the, if it pulls up, this will take you to the NLM Support Center, and just a bunch of frequently asked questions about ClinicalTrials.gov. And I'll just scroll down a little bit, but yeah, you can see this is a pretty comprehensive list, so I would definitely check this section out. Okay, I'm going to go back now, and we'll actually perform a search. So you can see here, I'm going to scooch down. In our search box, we have 4 search fields, which are also known as filters. And as stated right here, all filters are optional. So you don't have to put something in every single box. You can just fill out some boxes. And that's what we're going to do in this particular example. So in the first box where it says condition or disease, this is something where, well, and just to note here, next to the condition or disease, this little info button, we can click these to get a definition of the glossary. Will show us, just a little bit more about what each of these terms mean. So for example, for condition and disease, this would be the disease, disorder, syndrome, illness, or injury that is being studied. On ClinicalTrials.gov, conditions may also include health-related issues such as lifespan, quality of life, and health risks. So I'm going to close out of that. And so for this search, I am interested in finding studies on atrial fibrillation. And I'm going to start typing, and you'll see we've got this auto-suggest. And I am a big fan of this, especially when teaching classes, because for some reason I just can't type and spell when I'm teaching a class. So I'm a big fan of the auto suggest. I'm not going to run the search yet. I'm going to continue to scroll down. You see we've got an other terms section, and this is an area where you can put in information like perhaps a gene name or an acronym for a study. For this particular example, we're just going to leave it blank. And our third box, this intervention and treatment, this could be something like a drug or a medical device or a procedure or a vaccine. It could be something non-invasive, and that would be maybe a diet or patient education. We're going to leave this one blank for now. And then the last box that we have is location. And this is a really interesting feature that the modernized website has expanded upon. So the current version of ClinicalTrials.gov actually is integrated with Google Maps API. So you can search as narrowly as a street address. So for the purposes of this search right now, I'm just going to be broad, and I'm going to do United States and click that. And let's see, I'm going to go down a little bit and show you where it says for our study status, we can either select all studies or recruiting and not yet recruiting studies. And the default is all studies, and that's where we're just going to leave it with all studies. And then you'll see here we've got an option to expand to more filters to further refine our search. We're going to just start basic. We'll come back to that in a moment. I just want you to get kind of familiar with sort of more of a basic search. So let's hit search. And we're getting our results on a new screen here. And let's just get familiar with what's on our search results page. So as you can see, the search that we just conducted found 931 studies related to atrial fibrillation that are located in the US. And you'll note here that some of the synonyms for our condition or disease have automatically been searched too. And we can click that and see other synonyms that have been searched. The ClinicalTrials.gov uses the Unified Medical Language System as a dictionary for synonyms. So we can see the query terms that we entered as well as synonyms, and just know that these were searched on the back end across 7 fields in the study record, including title, condition, and keyword fields. The results are displayed in the order of their relevance to these terms. And just glancing over, you can see that our query terms and our synonyms have been highlighted in yellow. And right now I am viewing this in table view. When I first ran a search, it defaulted to card view. I'll just show you what that looks like. This view kind of reminds me maybe of what PubMed looks like a little bit. But for today, we're going to view things in the table view just so you can see more of that information just at once on the screen. Let's see. Okay. So on the left side of our table, we see all these filters that you can focus our search, and those are right here. And just for right now, because it takes up a chunk of the screen, I'm going to hide that and kind of get rid of the clutter just for a moment to show you these search results here. So you'll see here on the study title column, displays a brief, the study's brief title, which is hyperlinked to the full record. Next to this column is the NCT number. This is a unique identification code given to each clinical study upon registration at ClinicalTrials.gov. And the format of that is NCT followed by an 8-digit number. In our status column, you will see like the stage of the study. So, for example, some studies have been completed, some have been terminated, some are recruiting, some are active, but they're not yet recruiting. So we've got that highlighted there. Moving along to the right, we've got conditions and interventions columns as well. And above this, in this little section here, this is known as the action bar. And on our far right here, we can see where it says manage. I'm gonna click on that. And here, you will see a lot of different options that you can customize. These are the different columns that you can customize in the table that we were just looking at. And this is a really great feature for data researchers who often prefer to see as much information as possible on the screen. I am not going to do anything with this right now, but I just wanted to show you that it exists and it's here. Also in the action bar, we can download and save studies. And we're going to dive into this in a few minutes, but these are the little download and save icons. So let's see. Okay. Okay, at this point, I've gotten you a little bit oriented to the search results from our basic search. I'm going to expand our filters and show you what we can do here. So our original search terms are populated in the boxes, and if you remember, we just had two. We did the conditions and disease and then the location. We didn't get fancy at this point, but we can get fancy now. And let's just say, okay, that you heard of a treatment for AFib called cryoablation, and you're interested in finding studies on this. So what you could do is in this intervention treatment filter, you can type in cryoablation. And I'm going to click it from the auto suggest. I'm not going to run my search yet. I'm going to walk you through just the various filters and options that we have here. And we're not going to necessarily click a whole lot of these, but I'm going to just let you see the options. So there's a study status area. So if you're a patient and you want to know about, maybe you have AFib and you're looking for treatment options, or you want to be involved in a clinical trial involving cryoablation, you could limit that to a recruiting. We've got eligibility criteria. So those are things like age and sex. You can get really specific. You can also look at study phase and study type. Under study results, we're going to check with results for this particular exercise. Continuing down, we have study documents, funder type, and we also have date range, just a lot of really specific information. So, for example, maybe, if you knew the sponsor of a certain study, maybe that you were interested in, or a facility name, or a particular facility, you could add those here. For this search, we're just gonna keep things with our 4 filters and see how we can kind of limit down from 931. So let's see what happens. Okay. So with those filters, you can see that we got down to 10 studies, and let's look at a individual study record so you can see what that looks like. And I'm just going to click this first one, and it's titled Stop AF First. Let me just go back to make sure everyone that's following along, I just clicked the study title here. And again, we've got this disclaimer everywhere, reminding everyone of this fact. Okay. So at the top of the study record here, you can see that we have some key information, and some of these were discussed in the slides. So we've got the NCT number, we've got our sponsor listed, which happens to be Medtronic, and that is a healthcare technology company, and they are also happen to be the same responsible party. And then we've got when the record was last updated. And scrolling down here, we've got these 4 tabs here, and we're just going to go from left to right, and we'll go to the study details tab first, which is what defaults to our default view at first. So in the study overview section, you'll see we've got a brief summary and a detailed summary, or a detailed description of the study. So for this study, they are examining the safety and efficacy of cryoablation as an initial therapy for the prevention of atrial arrhythmia recurrence in patients with AFib. On the right over here, we have some key dates and numbers. You can see here that the study started in 2017 and it was completed in 2020, and they had a total of 225 participants. Moving over down to the intervention and treatment, we can see that this study involved 2 interventions, one being a cryoablation device and another being an antiarrhythmic drug. And we also have some resource links, and this is what we mentioned earlier, linking to patient education materials. So these are what the clinical trial is about, and we've got links to atrial fibrillation medicines, and then also a link out to the FDA drug and device resources. So this is just a really great place that patients can explore and find information written in a more plain language way that they can understand. Next, we have the study contact and location information. I'm going to scroll down a little bit for that. You can scroll just this way. I like to use the interactive map. When you click on that, it highlights the locations of the studies. I'm just going to click on one random. This one happens to be in Newport Beach, California. The one up here will take us to Portland, Oregon, Providence, St. Vincent Medical Center. So these are locations where the study is being conducted. And let's see, we'll go down a little bit to the participation criteria. And this is going to show you all of the eligibility criteria, and so the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So to be accepted into this clinical trial, there are actually quite a bit of exclusions, but those are all listed here. And then below that, we've got the study plan section. And this is where you can learn how the study was designed and what research questions that they wanted to answer. So you can see here that this was set up as a randomized study with no masking. And it also had 2 arms, which it has 2 arms and 2 interventions. And just to let you know, an arm is a group or a subgroup of participants in the study. So here, one arm would be the one that received a drug intervention, and the other would be the one that received the device intervention. So drug, device. Under what is the study measuring, we have our primary and secondary outcome measures. The primary outcome measures, these are the measures that the researchers consider the most important for evaluating the effect of an intervention or treatment. Most studies have one primary outcome measure. This study has two, and those would be the percentage of participants successfully treated, as well as the number of serious adverse events that occurred in those patients. Scrolling down, we've got secondary outcome measures. These are still of interest, but they're less important than the primary measures. And most studies are going to have multiple secondary outcome measures. This one has two, and those two would be the quality of life and then healthcare utilization. And we're going to continue scrolling down to our collaborators and investigators. These are going to be the sponsors and investigators. We can see specifically, you can see specific names of who's running these searches and which facilities that they're associated with. And then we've got this publication section. So just remember, not all clinical trials will necessarily have a publication. They might not have a publication. They might not have a publication yet. In this particular example, we do have a publication that we could click to if we wanted to actually read this article in PubMed. Our next section is the study record dates, and these show when the results were posted in ClinicalTrials.gov. Sometimes you'll notice a lag between when the results were posted and when the results were published. And that just kind of highlights the fact that ClinicalTrials.gov can really be a valuable research for a more timely discovery of research. And then lastly, we've just got some additional information, including terms related to this study. And you'll see here, these are mesh terms that have been applied to this study. Sometimes you'll see keywords here. Just a note that these are actually provided by the data submitters when they register a study. So ClinicalTrials.gov staff don't do any indexing at this point. But these terms right here, they could be used to help find additional medical literature and other resources. We also have information on individual participant data sharing, and then a link to the full study protocols and all the various versions of those, as well as the statistical analysis plan. So I'm going to scooch back up to the top, and you can do that easily by clicking way on the right that says back to top, and it'll jump you right up there. We have just looked through the study details section, but now let's check out the researcher view. This provides a more detailed description of the study details tab, and it's organized in a way that's useful for people like data researchers or journal editors. And we won't go into a ton here, but just kind of showing you what this looks like. We've got a results posted tab, and this is going to be where we find the summary of our results. And this is organized into 10 separate sections. The results overview, which we're in right now, it provides basic information about the study. We have the study record dates as we scroll down, and participant flow. This shows the progress of participants through each stage, from each stage of the study. And it includes the number of participants who started, completed, and dropped out of the study. We're going to keep scrolling down to baseline characteristics. This lists the data that was collected at the beginning of the study from all participants, and from all participants in each arm or comparison group. And these are going to be things like age, sex, race, and ethnicity. And just to kind of show you, and we've got all those here, just to show you, for example, for sex. We have a total of 203 participants, and of those, 83 were female and 120 were male. And we're going to scooch on down to race. And of the total 203 participants, we can see the breakdown here. The most participants that were enrolled were white. There were 185 of those. There were 10 Black or African American, 3 Asian, and then 5 that were unknown or not reported. And just remember that the final rule we talked about, the final rule requirement to submit race and ethnicity of participants, if collected, has advanced public availability of this information on the inclusion of different races and ethnicities, but we do need to do more work to just systematically ensure that the collection is complete and that the reporting is complete. So going on down, we've got outcome measures. We can see our primary and our secondary outcome measures. And then adverse events. This section allows you to review all of adverse events, whether serious or not. So these would be things that happen during the study within a certain amount of time, or that also could have happened after the study. So you can review mortality also here that occurred. And just a kind of a note here that the adverse events listed here, they may or may not have been caused by the intervention being studied, but they're reported anyway. We can see those listed here in detail. We've got limitations and caveats. In this particular one, there's nothing specified. And below that, we've got our collaborators, as mentioned, publications, and then administrative information, kind of down here about, just some disclaimers here. Okay, I'm going to go back to the top, and we're going to go over our last record, or our last tab here in record history. And this is a good section. It's interesting because it tracks all the changes to the study record. And this tab is most often used by researchers. You can just view the different versions of the study record and just see what changes were made over time. So let's say that you are, you just reviewed this study, you're very interested in it, you want to know, you want to keep it around, you want to download it, maybe you want to save it. To do that, we're going to scroll up to this bar again. So we've got the download icon and then the save icon. And to download, I'm going to go ahead and click that. To download, we have a choices of file format and what data fields that we'd like to export. And those, we have CSV, JSON, RIS. We've got just some different options here. RIS is a newer, has been added most recently. I'm not going to do anything fancy with this, but when you can download it, and it just, I had indicated a CSV file, so it downloaded it. I'm going to show you how to save now. To save this record, click this little bookmark, and you'll see an alert that says that this study was added to My Saved Studies. Well, where's My Saved Studies? If you scroll to the top, you see My Saved Studies at the top on the right, and that's where any of your saved studies will live. You can keep up to 100 in here. And so, and you can see here, when you add it, it's going to come across as that default from the table view, and all your information is here. And one thing that's a cool feature is if you'd like to share a study from this page, you can easily do that by selecting which study you would like to share. We just have one. And this little copy function. And I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to open a new tab and paste and go. So if you were to send that to someone, maybe you want to email someone directly, they'll get a link directly to that study. So that's a cool little feature. I'm going to go back to our previous search screen, and I'm going to go to the blue bar near the top where it says return to search. And I'm going to show you one last function. So here in our action bar, you'll see this RSS button. There is not a way to save our search strategy in ClinicalTrials.gov, but you can click on the RSS button here and create an RSS feed. And creating an RSS feed for a specific search, it'll allow you to easily access and browse and study, browse the study records that meet your search criteria. And these would be ones that have been posted for the first time or have perhaps had an update in the last 14 days. And what I'm going to do, click here so you can see, you can select whichever is of interest to you. You can click create RSS link, and that's going to take you to this information here. So if you're interested in RSS feeds, there you go. And there's also an alternative way to, oh wait, let me go back really quick to show you, if you want to know more about RSS feeds, you can find that out under the Find Studies tab. There's a section about RSS feeds right here. So it'll give you a lot more information than what I just did. So, okay. And then there's another way we can save our search. We can also bookmark. It's just really simple. We could just bookmark our search results page just in your browser. You can favorite it. And each time you visit that page, we'll just see current results for whatever that search was. So if you recall, we dove in here with with basic searching, which turned out to be a little bit more involved. So I'm going to have you at this point perform just on your side a quick basic search to move on, just so you can see how straightforward everything is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go right back to home. And we're going to do another search at this point, just a really, really simple one. And so this topic here, let's say you have a search for breast cancer trials, and you want to know which breast cancer clinical trials are actively recruiting near you. So if you're following along, in your condition disease box, we're going to enter breast cancer. And we're not putting quotes or anything like that, just breast cancer. In the location box, this is where our results are going to differ, but on your end, enter your street address or your city. If you enter a street address, you can set a radius for how far you're willing to travel to participate in a study. And I'm just going to type in my zip code here. And you'll see that radius section. And then under study status, I am going to go with the recruiting and not yet recruiting. And I'm going to hit search, but I want to know from you guys what your, what were your results? So we can take just a couple of minutes, and if you want to put in the chat maybe where you're at and how many places are nearby you. You saw me do my search, and within my 50-mile radius of where I live, there are 2 studies that are currently recruiting. So let me check in this. Okay, we've got a lot of results. Nice. Okay. And I do see some questions. We'll get to those questions. Okay. Wow, you guys have a lot more clinical trials near you than me. Okay. Okay. We have what's left in our class. We have 15 minutes left. And what I have left is to share two search tips with you, as well as just a little bit of a more detailed example that we could work through. But before I get into that, let's see what kind of questions that we have.
Okay, Carolyn, I don't think we're going to be able to get to everything, and we
Yeah.
will include the questions and answers with our follow-up email that will go out
Okay.
within
Okay.
about a week or so. I do have answers to a couple of them.
Okay.
Bear with me while okay. So there was a question, do the filter options correspond to certain of the database fields? And so the answer for that is regarding which fields are searched for with specific filters. So here's your answer.
Okay.
Free text searching is available for data fields such as condition, disease, other terms, the intervention, treatment, and location. The fields on the registration form that will be searched for these terms is available. Well, shoot, I have a URL to put in. Hold on, I'm putting it in there. So that's just a little, and we'll follow up more
Okay.
about that. Then there was a question, and sorry, these are not in order as received. Can you speak to how external publications are connected to the ClinicalTrial.gov record? And you did touch on that. There's that NCT number, which is the
Yes.
clinical trial identification number. So for external publications,
So,
go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, so what I'm gonna do is
Okay,
this is
well, you
one
have
of
a
the
tip.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say this is one of our tips actually. So what I'll do, so I'm in PubMed now, and what I'll do is I'm gonna show you how to use a field tag um to filter PubMed results so that you can see what has been registered on ClinicalTrials.gov. This is actually detailed on your handout, but so what I'm going to do, I'll just show you here. Let's say, so we're going to type in ClinicalTrials.gov, and then we're going to put in brackets. We're going to do SI, and SI, that stands for secondary source. And just for this particular search, I'm just going to use Vertigo as a topic and hit enter. And so for this, you're going to get results that are where there are clinical trials being done. And I'm just to show you what this looks like. I'm going to click on the first one, and you'll see here just in any PubMed record, if there's a clinical trial that has been done, you'll see this trial registration. And it's really cool. Right here, you can click right out from PubMed, use that NCT number, and it's going to pull up the clinical trial related to the PubMed study. So this is not a PubMed searching class. There's probably better ways to explain this and to show you in PubMed, but since we're focused on clinical trials, I just wanted to show you in PubMed, yeah, that is an option. So I hope that perhaps answered some of the question.
Okay, so she did have a follow-up. So let me just see, because I had part of an answer. Okay, so regarding external publications that are connected to the clinical trial record, some may be a derived reference, meaning it has been auto-indexed from PubMed. The data submitters do not add the publication to the study record. Auto-index publications may or may not be related to the study results. Oops. They may relate to the protocol or some other aspects, and searchers will need to check the abstract and or the full text of the article to confirm, if it's
Yeah.
actually related.
Yeah.
There were a couple other questions that may be quicker to answer. Let's see. This came from Marina a while back. What is the policy of ClinicalTrials.gov on completed trials? Are they retained indefinitely? Yes, information about each study is permanently available in the database even after the study ends. So that's that one. There was another one, Marina, that we'll get to in via email. Then there was a question, what is the source of auto-suggest terms? And I do have an answer for that. Auto-suggest is available on certain fields such as condition, intervention, lead sponsor, and facility name. And the fields are set up to suggest the top 5 terms in the database by popularity, then brevity, and shows the shortest original value for a normalized form, which gets a little murky at the end of that explanation. But basically, it looks at certain fields.
Okay. And I do know that you can type in things that if there's no autofill, you can still do a search on that. It'll keep, yeah. So that's an option as well.
And you did touch on this a little bit, but there was the question, what words or vocabulary does clinical trials support? Are mesh terms supported or regular keywords the best? You mentioned UMLS, the Unified Medical Language System.
Yeah. And so what I would suggest is if you're at that level where you're familiar with mesh and those advanced search strategies, I would just suggest just trying them in the fields here and seeing what you get, because a lot of with searching, a lot of it's just kind of it's more of an art than a science, and to just see what kind of results you get. So
okay, and I think those are the and I don't know, maybe you know this one, Carolyn. How do you select a large number of studies to download to a citation manager? Do you need to mark one each individually?
yes. So when you've done, and I don't have my, okay, well, there's just one here. Yes, when you can click, there are the little boxes, you can click as many as you want. At the very top, there's that box that will select all of them. You don't have to select all of them. But you can just pick and choose which ones you'd like to either save or export for that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
And so other questions, we'll get back to you. I've got them all pulled from chat.
Okay. Okay, so I showed you really quickly one search tip just in PubMed about how to find out if there's any clinical trials related to a certain topic. So we've done that one. Another one I would like to share is just a note here. So ClinicalTrials.gov, it's a really good resource for identifying studies with unpublished results, which is important when you're really after the entire body of evidence on a particular topic. For example, when you're doing a systematic review. We don't have a filter that we can apply to these. However, you can still do this search, and I'm going to go over this on how to do that. So we're going to go to the home page. We're going to click on, we're not going to put anything here yet. We're going to click on more filters. And I'm going to go down to where it says study results. Yes, here where it says study results, and I'm going to click with results. And I'm going to go back up to where it says other terms. And this is really important to capitalize and type everything exactly as shown. So this is going to autofill for me because I searched it earlier. But area, you're going to type in area, all capitals. And then in brackets, you're going to type in reference type. And then you're going to type in not result. We're going to do search. And right here, this is showing you all trials that have results posted, but don't have any publications relating to those results. And we say there's a lot. There's a lot of those. So some studies, they may include other types of publications. For example, maybe a study about the protocol or the study background, but it, and I think you answered part of this. They also may include those that have been auto-indexed in PubMed. Anyway, so that just to know, that's if you're into if you do systematic reviews, there is a way to find this kind of, you get some data without having a published article.
And I believe we have that on the class handout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it is not, for me, it is not intuitive, like to type it out like that in the brackets. So yes, it's definitely good that that's on the handout. Let's see, we have just a couple minutes left. What I like to get back to is just this, and this is really just with the last couple of minutes. If you're following along, what we have here is a scenario, a research case scenario. And this is also on your handout. So the scenario is a trauma center is interested in designing a study examining the use of virtual reality with adult burn patients during wound dressing changes. So the research team recalls hearing about a few studies that utilized virtual reality, but they're not sure if the studies looked at pain reduction, anxiety reduction, medication reduction, or some combination. So the team wants to know what similar research has been done or what is currently being conducted, and they want to review the study plans to help aid with their own study design. So this is your turn to kind of play around with how to find this in ClinicalTrials.gov. And it's important to note that there is not one way to do this search. There's multiple approaches. You could do different entry terms or filters. We have just a few minutes left, but if you are following along and you'd like to do this, we'd like to hear, what your experience was, if you were able to come up with any information on this. So you could take a minute to search in ClinicalTrials.gov and see what you can find. But yeah, so if you're still searching with that exercise, that's fine. You can take your time. And the very last slide is just a thank you to everybody for today. You can reach me at this address. I'm clcurry@uw.edu.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.